All right, wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today and welcome to our live session. It's not a webinar, don't call it a webinar, it's a live session where we're going to be covering how to protect against DNS security risks with Red Sift OnDMARC. We're delighted that you're here and we're grateful that you chose to spend your morning or day or evening with us wherever you are in the world. Like I said, my name is Rebecca Warren. I lead marketing here at Red Sift, and I come to Red Sift by way of startups and scale-ups in computer networking, DevOps, and application security. And I've been with Red Sift for about a year, but thrilled to be hosting another webinar, especially with my esteemed co-host, Reid Cockrell. This is our first webinar, live session, that we're hosting together. And Reid is the Senior Product Manager for Red Sift OnDMARC. Reid and I have been working together closely on all things related to today's webinar, and I think we have some really unique and differentiated content to cover in our hour together. So let's talk through the agenda. A lot of what we're going to cover today is fueled by the recent release of DNS Guardian, which is a new feature in Red Sift OnDMARC that we announced on Tuesday. If you haven't heard the news, that's no problem. We're going to cover all of it today. But this feature is really focused on the security risks that sit at the overlap between DNS and DMARC. So we're going to start our time there to make sure we're all on the same page about how these topics are related and kind of the security risk that overlap poses. From there, Reid has some recent research from the team at Red Sift into this threat that we're going to share. And then we are going to get into the feature itself and, of course, a demo. Reid and I met early this morning to pray to the demo gods, manifest positive thoughts with the crystals, burn some sage, turn the computers on and off one extra time. So I'm thinking, I don't want to jinx it, Reid, but I'm thinking things are going to go smoothly on that front. So I'm excited for this. So why don't we go ahead and get going? Unless, Reid, anything I missed before we jump in?
All good. Sounds great.
Wonderful. All right. So as I mentioned, today's session is going to talk a lot about the overlap of domains, DNS, and DMARC, and the security risks that sometimes arise as a result. For this section, we're going to try to keep it interesting, try to keep it spicy, try to keep it fun with a metaphor to help us understand that overlap a little bit more. And I have to give a shout out to Franz Hinner at Gartner, who helped us really perfect this metaphor and make sure it's covering all of the things that are so important to the rest of today's session. So we are going to start our metaphor here at this beautiful castle that looks like it's somewhere in like Austria. And this castle represents your domain. Like any good castle, you have strong strategic position. You're at the top of this beautiful hill, and you have great natural defenses in the waterways that surround you. You've put in the work to make sure that you have strong defensive structures like thick walls and towers and a gatehouse. But really, if we take this a level up out of our metaphor, what we're saying is you've done the work to make sure that your domain is secure. Now, of course, like any castle, you have more than one building. What good is a castle if it's just one building? Where's the amazement in that? You also have side entrances and annexes and courtyards and hidden tunnels and secret passages, which are our metaphor that we're going to be using for subdomains. While these may share, the same strong strategic positions and natural defenses as your main domain, they have different purposes from the main castle. Some might be there to control access or to provide escape routes, or maybe some are there to prevent congestion between peoples and goods, or maybe some are there as backups if the main gate gets destroyed. But having more than a single building and a single castle helps with defenses and operational efficiency and the overall functioning of the castle or your domain. But it also means that the security measures are going to be different than the main gate. Some you might be able to access outside the wall, for example, or maybe through a hidden painting in a cottage in a nearby town for the Harry Potter fans out there. Or maybe they're hidden altogether. And you do everything you can to draw attention away from that point. But how do you keep track of all these different entries and exits and annexes and courtyards, especially in the instance where someone is trying to find their way through the castle. People were thrilled about the AI art on this one. Get ready for the DNS, which is our map of the castle, and which is your domain, and the other entrances, courtyards, and annexes, which is the subdomains. So when someone asks, where is example.com, the DNS translates this into a specific location. This, in our metaphor, would be like guiding the visitor to the right place inside the castle when they ask where to go. Similarly, if someone asks for a blog.example.com, the DNS provides the exact right directions to that side entrance. In this case, the blog section. So when DNS is working correctly, users effortlessly reach the desired website, just like finding the right destination on a well-maintained castle. Now, for those teams that want to be sure that only the right people enter and exit the castle, they'll station a diligent guard to protect the entrances and make sure only the expected people enter and exit. For the sake of our metaphor, let's imagine our guard is a long-haired, blonde archer played by Orlando Bloom, and we will call this guard our DMARC. Now, our DMARC, or this guard, will have three main jobs. Got to get him in there, make sure he's stationed. The first is verification. Just as guards verify the identity of messengers claiming to represent the castle, DMARC verifies emails claiming to come from the domain, make sure that the emails are genuine, that the senders are authorized, and that there are no malicious imposters. If someone is found out to be a malicious imposter, the guards can make decisions on how to deal with them. If they have a DMARC of none, they say that person is malicious and let them right on through to where they say they're going, which, we at Red Sift aren't huge fans of. But from the other options are quarantine. So if there is a malicious imposter, they put them in a secure area for further inspection and make sure that no immediate harm is done. Or the most strict policy is reject, which is they outright refuse the entry to this malicious imposter to make sure that they aren't allowed to reach the castle. So obviously, this is a Red Sift OnDMARC web and live session. This adds a layer of security by preventing phishing attacks and email spoofing and ensuring only valid emails reach their intended recipients, which I'm sure almost everyone here is well aware of all of the benefits of DMARC. But what happens if the guards forget to protect those secret entrances? We're going to revisit our metaphor one last time. Because what if a malicious imposter or bad actor wants to access the castle, but they know they can't get past the guards? Maybe they come up with an idea and they say, why don't I look at all of the secret entrances and see if they've been forgotten about or left unguarded and unprotected. And from there, I can access the main castle, that domain. So this is what we're going to be talking about today. This is when bad actors are able to take advantage of poor DNS hygiene, where the DNS records are not properly maintained, and cyber criminals can take control of these secret entrances and get past that guard or DMARC that's protecting the castle. Now, when this happens, it's called a subdomain takeover. Subdomain takeovers occur when subdomains point to services or domains that business no longer used but haven't been properly removed from the DNS record. In this situation, there's a lot of options for bad actors to use when it comes to using that vulnerable subdomain to carry out different types of attacks. It can be anything from setting up a phishing website to serving malicious content or stealing cookies and customer information to the one we're going to talk about today, which is sending malicious mail that follows the organization's DMARC policy to then, extract information or lead users to nefarious sites. But regardless of the specific attack that is undertaken once the subdomain takeover occurs, there's huge business level impact if we come out of our land of the metaphor. Whether the bad actor is using the loophole in your DMARC policy to impersonate the organization, or setting up a phishing website, These attacks have significant impacts across the business, whether that's, operation disruption from security teams being diverted to handle the breach, to harming reputation when customers are impacted, to fines or regulatory penalties, or litigation, depending on the industry. Well, it sounds simple. Because of the connected nature of DNS and subdomains and emails, the true scale and impact of these can be astronomical. So Reid, hopefully that all made sense to the folks here. I know we want to talk about subdomailing because it really highlights this unique overlap between DNS and DMARC, and kind of that exact example we were talking through of getting past our Orlando Bloom DMARC guard. So why don't I pass it over to you, and we can talk a little bit more about the specific subdomailing attack in general.
Sounds good. Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. So yes, as Rebecca has mentioned, DMARC typically sort of acts as a guard into your castle. And I think up until recently, it's fair to say that this was a fairly adequate defense for most. However, what subdomailing has done is it has made the threat of bad actors being able to break into the castle via these methods a reality. We're no longer sort of in the hypothetical. How it works is as follows. So these bad actors, as mentioned, were able to sort of capitalize on poor DNS hygiene. So this is looking for any sort of stale, forgotten, or misconfigured records in your DNS that are sort of wrongly configured. Attackers are then able to send fraudulent emails. So they send emails as images to avoid text-based spam detection. And the sheer volume of this campaign is fairly scary. So there was 8,000 plus domains of trusted brands hijacked, about 13,000 subdomains. And they're sending at one point up to 5 million emails per day on behalf and sort of impersonating these brands. And they were generating revenue through sort of fraudulent ad views. So sending customers towards fake giveaways, security scans, fake like survey and affiliate links, all with the intention of sort of, generating this revenue and impersonating these brands. And you can see there's some fairly big household names that have been impacted by this attack in particular. We've got people like eBay, Marvel, PwC, Lacoste. There are some sort of big, well-known brands that have fallen victim to this. Lots of those brands, not all of them, have moved to rapidly fix and to sort of try and remove those poison records. And as has been touched on already, is these emails are able to pass DMARC checks, which is a huge concern. So I'll show you an example of this on the next slide.
Sorry, Reid.
No, that's okay. So what we've got here is an example of a customer's DNS record, which we have obviously anonymized, but you can see there's a customer subdomain at the beginning on the left-hand side. And then you've got a CNAME record, which is pointing to this hijacked SPF records. And what that leads to is this section underneath here, which is this sort of really quite strange and weird, never before seen domain that has been authorized by that include. And on the right-hand side, you can see this in an SPF tree. So this is something that we have been able to generate through our SPF checker, which is a really great tool. And you can just see that the sort of visually, the red line here is something that's been affected by this subdomailing campaign. And essentially, the sort of outcome of this is that there are now thousands of sort of botnet IPs that are configured to pass DMARC. And this could be configured to sort of host fake websites on the customer's domain, or even send email on that domain. We've done some research of this ourselves. We sort of detected, we've done analysis of this on over 4,500 sort of active domains. And the interesting thing here is that it showed only sort of just under 1,000 unique SPF records. What that indicates is that sort of there are many domains that are either sort of sharing identical SPF records or have a significant overlap in those IP addresses that are sending on their behalf. Our conclusion here is that this is an approach that's been weaponized by multiple bad actors. And I think the original line of thinking when the campaign was reported was that it was a single group attack. But I think we can sort of safely say that it is by a larger network of individuals. And I think what this really means is that it will continue to be used in the future, as poor DNS hygiene is easy, low-hanging fruit with fairly high reward. And also the fact that it's sort of being used by a potential large set of bad actors means that it's not a problem that's going to go away.
Rita, we got a really great question in the chat, which I want to hit on, which was, are the attackers actually adding or changing DNS records? They would need access to the DNS hosting in that case. Can you just hit a little bit on how this happens, what you talked about on that previous slide, just one more time?
Yeah. Do you want to hop back one, and then we can go through it again?
Yep.
Yeah. So essentially, if we look at this record in more detail, what we can see is it's sort of broken down into a couple of sections. So the first piece on the left is the subdomain that we're talking about. And then secondly, on the right-hand side, you can see there's a CNAME. So this record is pointing to a SPF record that has been hijacked. And then because this SPF record has been hijacked via an include, they're essentially able to authorize this domain here to send emails on behalf of the original domain and subdomain.
Yeah. And Reid, just to add a point, so this domain, we actually did a lot of research into these types of domains, these Marketo kind of look-alike domains. And what happened was those were originally added to the DNS records by the security teams or whoever was using those, but then they expired. So after they expired, bad actors picked up those domains. And then since it was included via the CNAME, we're able to kind of inherit this SPF tree. So it wasn't changing the DNS. It was taking advantage of poor DNS hygiene, where records were kind of left in the DNS, forgotten about. Bad actors saw that, went ahead and registered those domains, and then inherited the organization's DMARC policy. Does that help? I know we have some other folks here in the chat for sure who can provide color where I missed, but hopefully that brings some clarity to what we're talking about. Awesome. All right. Wonderful. Reid, now that we've kind of talked about the attack at a high level, I know in working on this from the marketing side of the house here at Red Sift, it was really clear that we saw how our customers were impacted and we felt compelled to take action. Like, we looked at this and figured the only path forward was to take action and make sure that our customers were protected. So tell us a little bit more about this new feature that we just announced this week called DNS Guardian and how it can help our customers be protected. Oops.
This brand new feature, DNS Guardian, essentially what it does is it sort of identifies, the purpose of it is to identify and mitigate sort of any risks that are associated with subdomains that are susceptible to takeover and ones that already may be controlled by a bad actor. So we sort of break this down further and look at exactly what it can do. The first thing is that, yeah, it can stop domain takeovers, particularly with a focus on this subdomailing. So it sort of allows you to sort of stop any ongoing attacks by identifying any subdomains that are currently exploited and exploited in this ongoing subdomailing campaign. What it also does is it allows you to detect future domain security risks. So you can prevent future takeovers by detecting errors in your DNS configuration and sort of resolving them ahead of time to stop your organization being vulnerable to that sort of exploitation. So it's sort of trying to move towards a much more proactive approach to sort of domain security. Continuous monitoring is a really, really important one. So this allows you to ensure that you've got that really, really strong DNS hygiene by doing the continuous monitoring of your configuration and flagging any issues that occur that are detected sort of almost in real time, and it eliminates the need for sort of manual tracking, which then hopefully sort of frees up internal security and IT resource to work on sort of high level tasks or bigger projects. And also, and I think this is super cool, is that it gives you sort of complete visibility of your domain estate. So we've been able to sort of lean on and leverage some techniques courtesy of Red Sift ASM, which we'll talk about in a little bit, which enables you to sort of comprehensively identify any and all subdomains that are linked to your domain. So it may be that you have subdomains that you put into OnDMARC, and then there might be other ones that you don't know exist, and we're sort of trying to make sure that those ones that maybe aren't within your field of view become so.
We've got a couple of interesting questions in the chat as you've been going through this, and I just want to hit on one we got. That was, is this only interesting for bigger organizations with many domains and subdomains? I think, I could understand why that question is being asked, but where I really see a lot of value in this feature is it's like one less manual task for any security team to do. So we've already hit on that, like DNS hygiene is critical. This attack is going to be ongoing. There's a network of people doing this. So upkeep for any organization is going to be critical. So whether you're thousands of people or much, much smaller, it's one less thing for you as a security person to worry about that's automatically baked into the tools that you have. I'm gonna pass the floor back over to you, Reid. There's some other questions on pricing and packaging, which we'll get to in a minute. But I had to jump in on that one, Reid. But let me get back to you to talk about kind of why use this, and then we'll get into the demo, into the good stuff.
Yeah, so I think there are some really sort of major wins here. So the first one is it enables you to protect revenue. So yeah, domain takeovers can be fairly disruptive to your operations. Interrupting teams can lead to sort of customer churn and lost sales. So it's something that needs to be protected. Defending your brand reputation. So any sort of compromised domains can really dilute your brand. It can confuse your customers and damage the reputation that has been worked on for a long time to sort of build that trust over time. It can erode really quickly when you have sort of attacks like this. Thirdly, to sort of mitigate any risks and fines. So data breaches and sort of regulatory violations are costly. And lastly, it enables you to sort of empower your security team. So it eliminates the need for sort of manual and tedious DNS tracking, and freeing up that sort of valuable internal resource to work on higher level sort of security tasks and projects. Rather than sort of spending time in weeds too much. But I think it's probably time for me to stop talking about it, and I can show everyone, because you're probably bored of me going on about it now.
Okay.
So
let's see. There we go. I'm passing the screen over to you.
This is where we really do pray to the demo gods.
I know I should have put some crystals on my desk to manifest, but I have faith. Reid.
Can you see this?
I can see that.
Great. So this is, I'm just going to caveat this demo, by the way, I'm doing this in a QA environment. So it is sort of, it is not, it's synthetic demo data. And then how it looks. So you can see we've got this new feature in the menu, on the left-hand side.
I'm just going to interject. This is synthetic demo data so that we're not exposing customer insights or anything that's real, or things that could be exploited by bad actors. But this is live for our customers. It's not a synthetic feature, just the data in here to prevent any bad actors. But sorry, Reid, go ahead.
And how this how the feature looks here is as follows. So there's this sort of header overview section at the top. You can see what we've called a discovery breakdown. So this will show you the total amount of issues that have been discovered, and then across how many sort of unique host names and unique related to domains that there are. So host names are obviously the sort of host name in question that has been affected, and then related to can either be the subdomain or the parent domain based on the sort of infrastructure and setup. And it's broken down by severity. So we currently surface 2 levels of issues, one being critical, which is the red, and the second one being high. And then lastly, you can see the sort of type of DNS issues that have been discovered. So in this particular example, we've got some dangling NS issues, dangling CNAME issues, and also some issues related to an SPF subdomain takeover. And each of these have a hover state that explains what this is. If you then scroll down slightly, you can see the table, and what you see here is each row here sort of represents an individual issue. You can see, again, the host name and the related to domain alongside the severity and the issue type. And then what you can also see on this table is the affected record. So the reason that we show the affected record on this page is because you could have a situation where a host name and a related to domain appears in here more than once because you have more than one issue. And so the affected record is essentially this sort of unique differentiator, and it allows us to sort of have it to sort of help you on an issue by issue basis with sort of guidance and recommendations on how to fix that specific RON, rather than sort of trying to group it all into a top level domain or subdomain level. You can leave yourself notes here. So you can see I've been leaving myself some lovely notes to make sure that this all worked. And then what you can do most interestingly is that you can dive into a specific issue and get further information. So this one is related to an SPF subdomain takeover. And the structure is as follows. So you get an overview at the top of what exactly the sort of issue is and what it means, and with also some instructions on how to resolve that issue and what to look for in your DNS. You can see, again, the top level information, so the related to domain, the affected subdomain, and also the date that this issue was first observed. The notes obviously carry through from the previous page, and then if you scroll down further, you can see the DNS information. So the actual record that's been affected, the DMARC record, and as well as the SPF record, and then you can link out to sort of view that full chain in our SPF checker tool, which I think is a great way of being able to sort of visualize and see how that issue is sort of spanning across your infrastructure. This page is dynamic. So if there are a couple of examples where we have more information. So like if we can sort of detect any A records for this page and detect that there's something going on, then we can show you a screenshot of what the page on that IP looks like, so you know how to sort of deal with it and what to look for. And there's also some sort of tips on general DNS hygiene and how to sort of maintain good DNS hygiene. And these are dynamic based on the type of issue that you're looking at. So for example, this is an SPF issue. So there's some tips here. And then if I go back and go into a dangling issue, the tips are slightly different. But really what we're trying to do is make this as easy as possible to surface any issues that we detect and then give you some sort of really clear and actionable guidance on how to resolve it and get it sort of fixed as soon as possible.
Yeah, I love that. Especially the clear and actionable guidance. I know a lot of the folks we've talked to as we're testing all of this out, you know, the overlap between DMARC and DNS in different organizations leaves folks with all different levels of experience of managing this. So I love that we have this straightforward guidance that even me, the marketing department, can generally understand and work with and make sure that, you know, the email security is protected from this type of threat. We got a great question, Reid, which is, does DNS Guardian require using dynamic SPF, DKIM, and DMARC services, or can it still review normal DNS records?
Yeah, it still reviews normal DNS records.
Awesome.
Yeah, no need for dynamic SPF. As much as I think everyone should use it.
As much as we love it, if you don't, no shade, I guess, as the youth would say, we could certainly still help that. We also got a question, which is, do you detect dangling A and I don't know this one, AAAA records? I don't know if I'm supposed to say 4A or say each individually there from 15 years ago, or just follow CNAME chains.
At the moment, we detect just for dangling DNS issues and the SubdoMailing issues, but we do have time in our roadmap for Q3 to add in a sort of wider batch of issues. So it's looking at things like issues, other SPF issues, issues with DKIM keys. Yeah, we can certainly look at use cases for sort of A or AAA records. No problem at all. But yeah, there is plan for us to sort of iterate and build a second version of this feature quite quickly.
Awesome. We love that. I'm trying to see if there are any other feature specific questions we've gotten in the chat. I know our Red Sift team that's in here has been all over them. So thank you to everyone that's been helping. But if there are any other questions, we can certainly pause. I know it's always easier to answer questions about what you're seeing while we have it up than later in Q&A. But Reid, I think while folks are typing, you did have one more piece to share that I think I interrupted. Is that right?
I think there's one more slide after this, but I think we've gone through this demo, so let me stop sharing.
Okay, wonderful. Perfect. All right, so let's keep going, and then we will come back. And Reid, I'm just going to say our prayers to the demo gods did, in fact, work out. That's all we can hope for. Wonderful. So here we are. Reid, I'm excited for this slide I'm about to share because we get this question a lot, which is, why aren't other DMARC providers doing this?
I think this one is a really, really interesting question. So I think if we break it down slightly, I think there's probably three components to this. So the first one is best in class DNS expertise. So we have really, really sort of deep expertise in DNS across the team. I'd love to include myself in that knowledge, but there are people at this company that really make me feel quite silly at times. So it's always good to strive for something else. But across our sort of founding and exec team, as well as in CS, engineering, data science, and you can see probably by some of the answers that you're getting in this chat, we have some of the sort of best and most knowledgeable people around, which is an enormous value add to us to be able to sort of look at these sort of things as from a strategic lens and figure out what the best resolution is for our customers. The second thing, and I touched on this earlier, and I think we'll go into this in a bit more detail in a couple of slides, but it's Red Sift ASM. So we've been fortunate enough to be able to sort of leverage this tech, and that sort of continuously discovers that sort of business critical external facing assets. So that enables us to be able to go away, do that subdomain scanning, find those records that may not be in your immediate field of vision, to be able to alert you and make sure that they are on your radar if there are issues, and they can be they can be fixed. And then I think lastly is sort of OnDMARC, the product itself. We're sort of uniquely positioned to be able to jump on this, partly because of the two things I've mentioned, but also because of the nature of the product. We can move quite quickly. We can build things. We've got a great team here that sort of is able to sort of is able to recognize these problems and iterate and deliver on those solutions really, really quickly.
Awesome. Well, I know we've gotten a ton of questions on this in the chat, so we're finally getting to, I guess, the big reveal of pricing and packaging. So as Faisal has shared in the chat, DNS Guardian is available through a new tier of Red Sift OnDMARC. We have Essentials and Enterprise, with a lot of folks are familiar with, but we've recently, alongside this launch, introduced Premier. And what that gives you access to is 50 active sender domains, as well as DNS Guardian. This is available to Red Sift OnDMARC customers through direct sales and through domain protection from Cisco, and updates for MSPs will be coming shortly. But it is available as a new tier, and your CSMs or CSCs are happy to talk to you about what that looks like for your organization. One more thing we have, which I think is really relevant to one of the questions I saw in the chat. One of the questions is about, does this only look at the domains included in my DMARC record? And Faisal shared in the chat that just because of resources needed to run Guardian, it only works on domains, and your account reporting to the OnDMARC RUA to prove ownership. But we realize that DNS hygiene and understanding your entire attack surface is really critical as threats like these are on the rise, and making sure that you're protected from misconfigurations and exposures and have visibility across your entire attack surface is critical. So for those of you that are interested in kind of taking that protection to the next level beyond just the DMARC piece, we do also have Red Sift ASM, which, if I'm remembering correctly, has somewhere around 40 checks for DNS hygiene, though Billy, who I think is in the chat may be able to confirm that for me. But our customers use this to get complete visibility into the attack surface, including cloud accounts, and getting a full inventory across domains, subdomains, IP addresses, and hosts without having to do so manually using spreadsheets or an intern in a list, but instead having it automatically and continuously updated. Of course, I'm the marketing person, had to throw that one in, but Reid, I think that brings us to the end of our session to land on our CTAs and to open up the floor for Q&A. But just to kind of drive home what we've talked about so far, if you're interested in this, definitely talk to your CS team. Some of them are even here in the chat. If you have some direct questions, I'm sure they'd be happy to talk with you. Stay vigilant with DNS hygiene, however you choose to do so. Make sure that you're continuously monitoring those castles, annexes, side entrances, and secret tunnels to make sure that you're protected from bad actors finding their way into your estate and castle. And then we also have some great free tools and resources, which maybe Reid or maybe Faisal, he's so fast, can drop in. If you're interested to understand if you have impacted records in your SPF, our SPF checker is a great place to start. But we'd love to help you kind of through this journey. I did see one question, which is, do you need Red Sift ASM for DNS Guardian? And no, you do not. DNS Guardian is available through that new tier, Red Sift OnDMARC Premier for Red Sift and Cisco customers, with MSPs coming soon. The chat has been moving, and I've been trying to keep one eye on the chat and one eye on the screen. I don't know how perfectly that worked, but what other questions are there? I do know we have some folks here that are happy to jump on stage and answer more technical questions. Or if there are other questions Reid and I can answer, we're happy to take a swing at those. Reid, I have found that it often takes folks a minute to put those questions in the chat, so I came prepared. I have this really important question for you, which is, why don't scientists trust atoms?
I don't know. Why don't they trust atoms?
Because they make up everything, Reid. Faisal on top of it. Wonderful. I can try to think of some more jokes while people work on getting those questions into the Q&A. But otherwise, Reid, any key takeaways for folks that I haven't covered?
No, I think you covered everything. Yeah, I think it's. I really would push that the fact that this is a really sort of proactive way of sort of managing and monitoring your DNS, and I think that's a massive upgrade on DMARC and how it works currently. I think it's a huge step in the right direction. I hope people are sort of excited about it, and I'm really excited about sort of hearing feedback and iterating on it and sort of developing the feature in the future.
Yeah, me too. Well, wonderful. Great joke in the chat there, Grant. that made me laugh. Well, thank you all so much. This recording will be available after the fact. Otherwise, our Red Sift team is here to support you. We know this kind of journey of DMARC and DNS is new for many people, and I guess Pancakes has also come to support everyone through this transition. If there's anything at all we can do to help support or answer any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Reid or your CSMs. Thank you, everyone, for spending your morning, day, or evening with us, and have a great one.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.